Hello, and welcome back to the second tutorial of how to play Paragon. This time we're going to be looking at cards and decks, what they mean, what decks are for, what cards do, and just generally what you should be looking out for when you're making a deck. The first thing you're probably asking yourself if you've not played before is, what are cards? Well, cards are essentially this game's version of items from other MOBAs. Usually you spend a currency to buy these are called card points. Usually in other MOBAs you might call it gold or something like that, but in here they're called card points. And once you spend the card points, you gain that card and the attributes that that card comes with. You can then upgrade it for 3 points to fully upgrade it, and then you get usually a bonus stat or a passive. You're probably also wondering what decks are. Well, decks hold your cards, and you can have quite a few decks. You get more as you level up, and you essentially put in whatever cards you want to be attributed to that hero. The real trick though is knowing what cards go well with what hero, and also what affinities can be used with what hero, although we'll come to affinities in a minute. And why should you build a deck? Well, in a deck it allows you to put anything you want rather than just the tutorial decks, which are basically just, oh, here are some safe cards that go well with that hero, although they may not fit well with your specific situation in that specific game. The other thing you should be considering while making a deck is the 60 card point limit that you get while in a game, meaning you can only spend 60 card points on your entire deck, meaning you have to fit your deck around that limit, and trying to make your deck as efficient as possible while using the maximum amount of card points per game. And now I've explained the what, and why, we're going to be looking at decks, what you should be looking for, and how to make a good deck that fits what you want. So what you're going to want to do if you've not made a deck before is you want to go up here, go to Profile, and then you go to Decks, and then just click New Deck if you've not already got one. And something to bear in mind before we start making decks is the affinities that each hero can use. These are displayed with the colours and the names such as Order and Corruption, Growth and Fury and Order, and Intellect and Corruption. And basically this is the kind of card that that hero can use. Greystone can use Fury and Order cards, although universal cards can be used on every hero. That is something that you should definitely bear in mind. Universal cards are very useful when you're making a deck. So let's say we want to go ahead and create a deck for Greystone. Just select him, click Create, and then it'll go straight to this, which is something you really want to consider, which is your Prime card. This is a card you don't have to spend any card points on. It is only activated, however, when one of the teams kills the Prime Guardian. If your team kills the Prime Guardian, you gain the stats from this card, no questions asked, as instant when it gets killed. This can win or lose a game depending on who gets it. Now if you're new to decks or you've never made one before, I'm going to recommend you go ahead and put a health potion, a mana potion, and a scout ward, just so you're covering all bases for the beginning of the game. And just before looking more at the cards, you can see at the bottom there's a way to actually filter out what you're wanting to look for, such as power, ability pen, basic pen, and crit bonus. And things like that, you can search through all of it at the bottom, and then you can clear the filter when you want to look at all the cards. Now the first thing you want to think about when you're making a deck is, what is my early game going to be, and what end build vision do I want? And Greystone really works well early game as a fair bit of damage to help him farm, and then late game getting a bit more tanky to help him live throughout fights, but obviously his ultimate comes into play because he can basically not die, come back to life and do a lot of damage in an AoE. Choosing Madstone Gem as my first card allows me to get a big power spike early on with the 12 power, adding 2 really cheap upgrade cards and then a 2-point upgrade card, allowing me to finish my card really early, giving me the power boost from finishing it and allowing me to farm a lot more efficiently. I'm now going to fast forward and show you a finished build and then go through some extra steps which I believe are important. This is an example build that I've done. As you can see, it's got 6 cards available. Starts off quite cheap and effective because it allows you to farm more effectively, but gets gradually more and more expensive, allowing you to get more powerful cards, late game making him quite tanky with quite a bit of HP, but still allowing him to do a hell of a lot of damage. Although, however, I'm going to ask you something. There's something missing from this deck, and what do you think it is? If the first thought in your head was multiple options for a deck, you would be correct. What if he needs more health? What if he needs more mana? Any kind of attribute you think he could possibly need later on in a game, you can put into his deck, just in case. You don't need to use it, you can just be there as backup. Always try to think ahead. If you're a first time deck builder, I wouldn't expect you to do this. You can play around with your build and add it later. But for example, what if I want to do more ability pen damage? It allows him to do more damage through the armor of the enemy. Well, I could always add the Armivore, add a couple of these on, and just add that to my deck. I don't have to use it, but it's there for if you think, oh, well, actually, that would be quite useful in this game. That pretty much wraps it up for cards and decks basics. I hope this helped you along in understanding how to make a deck, what the affinities do, and how to see which affinities work with what heroes. Also, you may have noticed in the beginning of the video, card crafting will be coming pretty soon, so I'll be doing a tutorial on that 100%, as well as going through all my old tutorials and revamping them. If you like this video, give it a like. If you disliked it, give it a dislike. And if you really like me, give me a subscribe. And I hope to have you here for the next tutorial.